Yeah, that's right. I see the chat. I see y'all rocking. I see y'all coming. Hit that like button as you enter the building. You know what I'm saying? Hit that like button. Show your love. Show your support. You know what I'm saying? This that dope soul. This that new thing. Nobody don't know about it.
Hello, Knick family. Welcome to Lunchtime Live, Knicks Recap and Reaction Show. I'm your host, Stephanie, a.k.a. Queen, joined by Geoff Klafter from the Happily Ever Klafter Daily Sports Blog. The Knicks won their third straight game last night versus the Sacramento Kings at Madison Square Garden. What was it, 103-87? One of the most boring games I've watched in a long time. Uninspiring games, in my opinion, anyway, until the fourth quarter, where I thought that lineup was just really, really good last night. And Brunson was Brunson in the sense of coming up with some clutch shots. We'll talk about that, but I'm going to hand it over to my illustrious co-host, Geoff. Geoff, how are you? And yeah, what's your overall thoughts on the game?
Wow, that was not fun to watch. Just so many turnovers through the first three quarters and just sloppy play, uninspired play by the Knicks. Very, very much in tune with what we saw actually the first time we played the Kings, except they didn't shoot lights out from three. They were 5 of 30, which is more the norm for them. They're not really a 3-point shooting team, so I guess you could say they regress to the mean. But the closing minutes of the closing minute, I guess, of the Philly game and this make you wonder how this team wins it all. You know, there's just it's just such a, and maybe it's just expectations and, you know, and that leading to a false sense of what should be. But, you know, we played one good quarter of basketball against Philly and we played 2 good quarters against Sacramento. So I guess from that standpoint, you might say it's an improvement. But when they were without Zach LaVine and Malik Monk, 2 of their better scorers and 3-point shooters, you shouldn't be tied with that team at the end of 3 quarters. And a lot of it was unforced errors. I thought most of our turnovers that we committed were basically us trying to push the pace recklessly, you know, in order to satisfy the mandate of our coach, which is I want them to have buy-in, but not at the expense of, you know, possessions. It just seemed like Josh Hart and OG Anunoby in particular were just way too loose with the ball. And it, you know, those empty possessions was, I guess, the phrase that I would want to say. Those empty possessions were really what allowed it to be a ball game for as long as it was. And then the Knicks, you know, shut the door and stopped turning the ball over and made shots in the fourth quarter and made it look like a much bigger blowout than the game actually was. And for a team that's got a game in Toronto tonight against a team that we're tied with in the Eastern Conference playoff standings, to not be able to run them out and get some rest for your starters is a little bit, I wouldn't say alarming, but disappointing.
Yeah, for sure. I thought, just to piggyback off of the turnovers, I thought in the third quarter, OG switched teams and started playing for Sacramento. I mean, it was like, it looked like back-to-back turnovers for OG Anunoby, who had 7 on the night. I mean, listen, one way you can look at this, as Kim Doc said in the chat, shout out to her, a win is a win. And for a team that had lost 9 out of their last 11, they're kind of working their way back into shape, so to speak. And not looking crispy, not looking nowhere like the team we saw to start the season. But maybe this is just a part of, you know, the process of them getting their motor running and getting back up to speed, because clearly they are not. Mike Brown, I think, is helping, or at least attempting to help them by shortening the rotation. Let me know in the chat, Jeffrey, let me know how you feel about that. It's basically down to 8 right now. And he made a comment a few days ago, I read, which is almost like walking back what he said in the beginning of the season. But look, listen, dire times call for dire measures. And the beginning of the season, I'll play 10, I'll play 11. I've been known to play 12. And then a few days ago, the comment was, look, I have 3 players coming off the bench in Mitch, McBride, and who's the other one I'm missing? Shamit. And I can't even get, everybody the minutes that I want them to have. And I'm like, wow, you can't get 8 players the minutes that you want them to have. So kind of walking it back in terms of this fully open rotation. But quite frankly, I think right now, I'm not saying for the entire season. Right now, this is what this team needs: a really tight rotation. Everybody knows what to expect. Everybody, has played with each other. They know when this player comes in, this is what we have. So for now, I'm okay with the 8-man rotation. We'll get into well, if you don't mind, I want to start with Cat not closing the past 2 games. One, Philadelphia due to foul trouble, and last night by choice. Like, he didn't play the last 6:51 or basically 7 minutes in the fourth quarter. And that team, I think was only up 4 when he went out and wound up winning the game by 15, 16 points, whatever, 14 points, whatever it was. And, if this was any other time, I would, bring up the point of losing a player. When you lose 9 out of 11, and you're trying to get your snide back, get back on stride, all bets are off. 8-man rotation, closing with the best unit, no matter what. And I think this is where the Knicks are. Mike Brown said that team that came in was rolling. And, Deuce is not a starter, but he was in there. Mitch is not a starter. He was in there. It was just about rolling with the team, that was hot. And Sacramento didn't make them pay for them. Didn't make them pay for it, right? They didn't foul Mitch. They didn't do, any of that. So, which made it easier for him to stick with that lineup. And for me, I thought it was the right call. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, first of all, I think that the MVP of the game was actually Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
I thought his 6 of 19 shooting and his 6 turnovers was what kept the Kings from taking control of the game. There were several possessions where it was a 1 or 2 point game, and he just he just either made a really boneheaded decision with the ball or launched an awful shot and really saved our bacon. So shout out to Russ. I always liked him. But to your question, and I think it's a great one. I have a lot. I've been considering this a lot because what seems to me is
you want me to come off the screen, Geoff? Do you want?
No. I never want you to come off the screen. Not at all. That does not enhance the show in any way, shape, or form. What I will say is this: I think there are a few. I'm curious if there are multiple things at play here. I'm wondering if Towns is being affected by all the trade talk and rumors, because this seems to be sourced reporting and it's not that he's not playing hard. He certainly is. He's got 11 rebounds and he's not disengaged. I mean, you saw him on the sideline rooting for his teammates. So I don't think he's being a cancer or anything, but I'm wondering, and he did, in fairness to him, he hit the big 3-point shot at the beginning of the fourth quarter to recapture the lead for us. And I know he missed his next 3 or whatever, but he had, before he went to the bench, he had a lot to do with the Knicks staying in front of the Kings. So even though he had a poor shooting night at 5 for 15, he only had 2 fouls, which is better for him. He wasn't the grand marshal of the turnover parade. So I don't think he had a terrible night by any stretch of the imagination. But at the same time, it just looks to me like lineups with Cat and 4 other rotation guys not named Jalen Brunson are performing really well. lineups with Jalen Brunson and 4 other rotation guys not named Karl Anthony Towns are performing really well. Putting them on the floor at the same time, and they're not performing well. And so that disconnect, that lack of synergy is not sustainable in my opinion. And that's the issue that I have. Kudos to Mitchell Robinson for having an outstanding game, and he deserved to close down the stretch by all means. And that lineup didn't have Mikal Bridges in it either, by the way, as far as I can remember. Correct me if I'm wrong. And he's another guy who was, rumored to be off to Portland in a trade for, a certain, freakish European. But it doesn't make sense to me. It should not be that those two guys who are so talented in and of themselves aren't meshing together. And I don't know if it's an ego thing. I don't know if it's I struggle to understand it. I'm not going to place blame either side. I don't know that they're just not meshing properly, and they're so talented. That shouldn't be a lineup we struggle with, and we are. And so to me, that just is a red flag that something is wrong chemistry wise. And I kind of saw it in the playoffs last year. I think we talked about this somewhere. It's like, we have these two guys that each got to play 36 minutes, but you almost want to carve out a dozen of those minutes where they're not on the court together at the same time, because it seems like whoever's sitting, that's when we're at our peak and at our best. And it's not just those two though, because I feel like between McCall and Deuce, McCall shot the ball a lot better last night, but I feel like we played a lot better when Deuce was on the floor in his stead. And a point of attack defense perhaps being the difference. Lineup, who was on the floor with them maybe making a difference. I don't know. I really like having the 4 defenders around Jalen. I think that's a really nice concept, and it worked really well. But at the same time, the double big lineup, I think, has been working better of late. And I thought it was decent last night again as well. And so the problem is you've got your 2 best players, and they're not, there's no synergy. There's no fusion. It's just confusion instead. And you rightly pointed out last episode that if those two aren't on the same page and at their maximum, this team's title hopes are 0. So, and that's where I'm at. I just feel like that because these two seem so incompatible for some reason, this is just not a team that is championship contender worthy at this moment in time.
And theoretically, I'm sorry, Geoff.
Go ahead.
Theoretically, they should mesh, right? I mean, on paper, I should say they should mesh and be able to play off of each other. I think that went into the trade, right? That these guys should be able to play off of it. And yet this is the second year where they have that has not been the case, right? Lineups with them, to your point, 4 other guys, 4 other players is better than when those 2 are on the floor. Now, is that schematics? Is that like sitting them down? Brunson has the ball in his hand a lot. So is this a matter of, listen, these plays are already in our playbook and our actions, and we need you to work this aspect of it a little more. It's going to help us, it's going to help us overall. Is this another case of, and we talked about this last year, we didn't know if it was the case where nobody wants to talk to Brunson, at least the coaching staff. At least that's what we thought, whereas Brunson just does what he does and nobody pulls his coattail as to, these are some options that we're not utilizing more, right? We talked about that with Tibbs. It's coming up for me too with Mike Brown. Is Mike Brown talking to him and saying, listen, this is what we need to do? Or for those who are more schematically inclined, do you see that we're just not running those types of plays where both of them can play off of each other? So if you're more schematically inclined, please, let us know in the chat or the replay gang whether or not you're noticing that. But you can't, if they're better when the other is off the floor, how is that even possible? So that means the minutes in which they share, you're going to lose.
And that's 24 minutes. That's half the game, right? Because you want each of those guys to play 36 minutes, I would think. And so, right. You can't have half the game, and that's been part of our problem, right? As you saw it in Philadelphia, where they had 3 quarters where we gave up 30 points. You saw it again in the middle quarters last night. It was an abject disaster, and it wasn't necessarily either one of those players' fault per se, but it just it just clicks better when they're separate right now, and you need your main guys to be able to play well together on the floor. And so I don't know how you resolve that issue. I mean, it certainly helped if Towns' percentages went back up as far as his shooting is concerned. He was 3 of 8 from 3 last night, which I think is a good sign. His 3-point shot seems to be coming back at a decent clip, but he was 2 for 7 inside the arc. He got to the foul line just twice. I don't know if that's just bad calls or a lack of aggression on his part. Probably depends on how big a span.
4 times last night.
Yeah.
Oh, you talking about the fourth quarter?
4 free throws, but 2. That's 2 trips to the line, right?
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to. But yes, he did. But he made all 4 of his free throws, and we needed all of them. So from that standpoint, I think there was one possession where he didn't get back in the play defensively for what it seemed like a year. Like Clyde even called him out on it on the broadcast. Where's Cat? And we were lucky it didn't end up hurting us, but and that's just one possession. And again, I don't think it's necessarily an effort thing. He's had, he had 11 boards and he looks engaged, but at the same time, he doesn't seem like he's locked in and focused like I've seen him be. You know what I mean? He's not playing at his peak all-star level. And I think sharing the court with Brunson is part and parcel of that. And that's a problem.
It is a problem. And shout out to DopeSoulSports. I'm just going to put this up because it's just in line with what we're talking about right now. Shout out to you, always rocking with us. 2 defensive liabilities. It's very easy to just blitz those 2. And OG and McCall aren't going to stop that. So what if they're better apart if it works? Because there's no way you're winning the championship keeping those 2 guys separate. No way. You have 50 million wrapped up in a guy that you're only going to play 16 minutes, and then another guy you're going to play 16 minutes to keep them separate so that they don't overlap. The guys that you have around them, are better in the regular season, but in the playoffs, if you have Brunson surrounded by 4 other guys, I don't care how defensive minded they are, you're not winning. I don't know if you win in a series. If you have Cat surrounded by 4 other defensive guys, even if they do give you some offense, they're not giving it at the level Brunson would. You're not winning. So it may work in the regular season to keep those guys separate, but in the playoffs, absolutely not. When other teams have 2 high-level players that can play together, and you're splitting yours with 4 other, it's just not gonna work. You're not gonna win a series that way. And so I think the Knicks' best chance is to either decide we thought this was gonna work, but it's not, and we need to move on from Towns this season, notwithstanding, because this was the issue last season as well. Or figure it out. Like we need to just sit down with them, because I don't know if this is a schematic thing. I don't know if this is just Brunson not working the options. We need to figure it out, and we need to be very intentional about figuring it out. Something has to give. There's no way the Knicks are winning a championship if those 2 can't stay on the floor together. And it can't even be they're going to overlap for 10 minutes. That's not good enough, in my opinion. What do you think, Geoff?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It is a massive issue right now, and you can't you know you can't split the baby, right? That's not an acceptable solution. You have to have these guys working together, and I wonder if maybe if Towns is still on the roster come 301 on February 5th, and he doesn't have to worry about, okay, I'm not going to be here, or what's my future. If that is cemented and solidified, which it may or may not be, I'm wondering if it's like, okay, now we need to turn the page and focus, because I'm going to be here for at least through the end of the season. So let's make the best of it, kind of a situation. I'm wondering if that be the case. But again, we have like 6 huge games up until the trade deadline. Like we have 9 games in the next 14 days up until the All-Star break. So, this is a tough stretch, and we've got, Toronto tonight, and we just, we're bang, 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 bang right after that every other night. And so we can't afford to have, this malaise or lack of confidence or lack of buy-in, whatever we're saying. I don't, and it may not be, it may not be fair to just put it to Towns either, but, last night he was certainly, more of a problem than a solution, which hasn't always been the case, but it certainly was last night. And he barely played against Philadelphia. So that's 2 games in a row where it's kind of like, where's your head at, Mr. Towns? And so, but again, Bridges has not been the same player since the first 20 games of the season. OG, as you said, looked like he was playing for the Kings for a good portion. But you know what's funny about OG's performance? Seemed like every time we got called for a shot clock violation or a turnover, you know how he puts up the shot, it went in. Like he was on he was dialed in shooting the ball last night, and he had like 3 shots and 8 points that didn't count, either because of a away from the ball foul or he didn't get it off in time. And it showed, because in the fourth quarter he made a big shot, and I think he shot 5 of 7 from the field overall. So he shot the ball well, but the turnovers were outrageously ridiculous. I'm not really sure, and out of character for him. Like I don't ever remember him having a 7 turnover performance before. So it was, and I thought he played pretty well. Maybe his best game of the season against Philadelphia. So to come down from that and really have such an uneven performance, let's call it, is certainly disappointing. But it makes me wonder if there just needs to be a change in the formula from that starting group, or from that core group, not necessarily the starters, the core 8, let's just call it, the guys who got minutes. I'm wondering if there just needs to be a shakeup of someone different in that group, whether it be moving on from McCall or whatever the case may be, just to get somebody who fits in better, and maybe somebody who's a better ball handler too, because it seems like when Brunson was off the floor last night, the offense really struggled to even get the ball across half court, much less attack the defense effectively. And so, if you're not going to play Kolek and Clarkson, and that's not, I'm not even disagreeing with that choice. I think that tightening the rotation is what's needed right now. But if you're not going to play those 2 guys, then Brunson is really the only creator that you have on the team. So you've got to find ways when he's off the floor to mitigate that. And Bridges hasn't been that, and Hart wasn't that last night, although he has done it at times. Deuce plays much better. The stats show Deuce is much better plus minus when he's an off guard than when he's the on ball guy. So that's he's not really the solution either. And so if you don't have the answer from in-house, maybe it's time to change the structure of that a little bit, where you have somebody who's a guard who can take over the lead responsibilities when and you've said this for a long time, this isn't new, but it really reared its head last night, when you're trying to look at this team and project them going forward as as a team in the playoffs. How are you going to survive a series you know, because they're going to be on Brunson like white on rice, you know.
Right,
So
right.
so that's going to exacerbate that, not alleviate it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, I mean, I think changes will be made at the trade deadline, and I think there's going to be. I think they're looking to make a major change, and if they don't, that the option just wasn't available to them. I am. Well, I just want to piggyback on one point. I don't think Cat was. I didn't think Cat shot well last night, but I didn't think he was terrible last night. He just didn't have a good shooting game, but still 11 points, 4 rebounds, 4 from the line, 3 of 8 from three. He didn't shoot the ball well. He only had 2 personal fouls. That now calculates into how well he plays because he's so
Half his average. So yeah,
he only had 2 fouls. And I thought he was making a concerted effort to not spend a lot of time complaining to the refs. He did complain to the refs, but not to the extent where he wasn't getting back, you know, down court. And he always seems to be engaged to me. Like maybe there was one game where in the second half he might have took 2 shots or something. I forget what game that was, where I felt like he wasn't engaged. But for the most part, I think he's engaged. And I think it's now more about, is he a fit with Brunson? And I don't even think that's the only question the Knicks have to ask at the trade deadline. Is Mikal a fit? Like, is there somebody else next to Brunson who may not be better than Bridges skill-wise, but who's a better fit for this team? You know, and we'll talk about this Thursday. I don't think that person is Drew Holiday. I'm just going to briefly say, only because of his age and salary. If we were getting him on a vet minimum, or you were able to turn like the back end of our roster into a Drew Holiday, I would be all for it. I don't think he's the player he once was when he helped Milwaukee and Boston win a championship, though he's still good, don't get me wrong, but he's 35 years old, making $32 million a year, if I'm not mistaken.
and I think he's got 3 years left on that deal
And
too.
he has 3 years left. So you're going to be paying him until he's what, 38 or 30, 37, 38, and you're going to give up one of your main rotation players for? I think that would be a huge decision and a mistake in my opinion. And I love Drew Holiday. I think he would be perfect on this team. But compensation matters. Like, you know, what you have to give up to get him and his salary, it matters. So it would be a hard pass for me. But again, we'll talk more about that Thursday. The main point I'm trying to make is Bridges and OG are not the players I thought they were going to be when I saw them the first 10, 15, 20 games of the year, where I thought that, wow, Mike Brown had really unlocked Bridges. OG has really turned the corner. This guy is a two-way player now. The Knicks have a really legit chance of winning the chip. This was before the Cat issues. And now we have Cat issues and OG and Bridges, really good players, really solid players, but in my opinion, not much better than they were last year, which was really good catch and shoot players, can step up offensively at times. Good. I still think OG is a good defensive player. He can't do it by himself. Like we've seen him dominate games defensively, but you can't ask him to be that, by himself. So if the Knicks decide to move on from Towns because they feel like his fit with Brunson is not great, I'm, okay. And if they decide to get an upgrade for Bridges because they feel like somebody else would fit better next to Brunson, I'm okay with that as well. That team we saw in the beginning of the season either has been found out or they not that. They just happen to be playing above their ceiling, so to speak. Yeah. Anything else from last night? I mean, Hart didn't play particularly well. 7 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals. Well, I mean, he didn't shoot well. He only took 6
Turnovers was
shots.
the big issue with him.
Yeah,
The
with
4
him, he had
turnovers
4
were bad.
turnovers. Yeah, he had 4 turnovers. OG had 7. Karl Anthony Towns just 2. Brunson 2. Shamet 1. McBride, I thought, played well, though he didn't shoot well. 4 of 11 overall, 1 of 6 from 3, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. It's hard for me to do the plus minuses, but he was a plus 20. Mitchell Robinson, 7 points, 13 rebounds, 2 steals, 3 of 5. But again, with Robinson, you got to watch the game to really see his impact, and he was super impactful last night. Shamet with just 17 minutes last night, 1 of 3. And we talked about OG, 15 points, 2 rebounds, 2 steals, 7 turnovers, but shot the ball well. 5 of 7 overall, only took 7 shots. 3 of 4.
3 of his shots didn't count. His field goal attempts were when the shot clock expired, they didn't count.
Right. Didn't count. Yeah. Anything else before we get to the chat you want to talk about?
I do want to mention something that maybe this is more for the Thursday show, but I think it bears mentioning right now, and that's that Mitchell Robinson has really put the Knicks in a tough spot, right? Because you can't, like, legitimately, you can't make a salary and motivated trade for him right now, like we've talked about. Like, he's playing too well. Like, he's too important to what this team is and how this team wins right now. Like, you just see it on the floor that I mean, OG even calls him the best defender in the NBA, you know, and you know, for a team that struggles at times to get stops, his presence is just that he's, you know, when you were a coach, I'm sure you told your players, play so well that I can't take you off the floor. Well, he's playing so well, you can't trade him, right? And so the Knicks are going to have to go into the uncomfortable situation of what are we going to do with him this summer? Are we going to give him the bag and go into second apron, you know, tax territory, purgatory, or are we going to, you know, let him go and significantly downgrade the quality of our roster without a way to really replace that, you know? So I think that it's an interesting dynamic, and I'm curious if he plays tonight, because there were some rumblings that, you know, I know the plan had been to rest him on back-to-backs, but I during the broadcast and after the game, I heard some stuff that maybe they're planning on using him again tonight against the Raptors, which would be interesting to see how he handles that, because it seems like we're not winning without him right now.
Yeah, I do think it's a tough decision for the Knicks. Yeah, we could discuss it more Thursday. I would cut my losses, quite frankly. I don't think this team is a championship contending team this year, with the way Cat is playing and Bridges and OG just not being at least who I thought they were to start the season. This roster, in my opinion, is going to have to be rejiggered. And, you know, Robinson is not just going over the second apron. Will the injury bug come back? Like, that's the thing. So it's a gamble either way. And I agree with you. It's going to be interesting to see what the Knicks do, because it can turn out to be a disaster, or it can turn out to be the Infinity Stone. You know, so, you know, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, you know, what they do. But anyway, let's get to the chat. Kim Doc, a win is a win. I saw some good stuff and some woeful moments, but glad to get that in the win column. Yeah, three straight wins, however you can get them. And hopefully you figure out what you're not doing right and continue to work on it as you're getting wins. Born Freedom, appreciate you. We better be ready tonight against the Raptors, because you know they're gonna be hot and ready. The Knicks have won 3 straight, they've won 4 straight. And the Knicks are just percentage points ahead of them in the Eastern Conference. So this is going to be a big one tonight. Kerry Cox, Jordan Clarkson in the doghouse. I don't know if he's in the doghouse. I just think Mike Brown just feels that at this time he needs to tighten his rotation. And, as far as shooting guards go, he's going with Shamet and Deuce. And you know how these things go. Things over the course of a season, he may find himself back in the rotation. We shall see. But for right now, I just think he's out.
Well, the defensive chops of comparatively, I think, is the difference. Like, I think that what we're seeing is when whether it be Shamet or Deuce are in the lineup, it really makes a difference as to how we're guarding people. I mean, the last 3 games, our defense has been much improved from the turnstile it was for most of the month of January, and a large part of that has to do with the return of those 2 guys healthy, and Clarkson doesn't bring that. That doesn't mean he doesn't have other attributes, but obviously in the coach's calculus, we need the defense more than we need his shot creation. And so, as long as that remains the case, Clarkson will be, a DNP CD. But if the time comes when we need more, scoring or shot creation, then maybe he'll get the opportunity to prove his quality again.
We do, but we do need more shot creation and more defense, and it's just one of those situations where you're not getting it in the same player. The Knicks scored 103 points last. The Knicks offense has not been great. I mean, they found the way to win last night. People in the chat have been asking, what is our identity? And that's it's a good question. What is our identity? I don't know if we're that, high flying offense, 5-out offense type of team. Because that team is just not good enough defensively. Right. So now we go into these hybrid lineups. And the Knicks shot pretty well last night. The Knicks shot better than Sacramento, despite taking 10 less shots. They shot 47.4% from the field, 40.6% from 3, and Sacramento shot just 40% from the field, 16.7% from 3, and the 10 extra shots or 9 extra shots just didn't make a difference. It didn't help them. The Knicks are winning right now, but I think they're still trying to figure out who they are as a team. I think it's gonna take some time. Yeah. Kim Doc, I don't see Brown doing anything to coach Cat up, but hopefully they're working on things outside of the bright lights. Okay, we talked about that during the show. Kev Berg, I think Brown can definitely do more to help the Cat Brunson chemistry, but I'm not sure if it's mainly a Brown issue or a Cat issue or a Brunson issue. If I may add that. Oh, I think we have a super chat.
We have 2.
Okay, sorry about that. Paris Doug, I appreciate you rocking with us. I appreciate the super chat. If Cat would take his 8 threes a game and make his layups, it wouldn't be a crisis. JB is fine on D without help. OG, Bridges, and Deuce were weird tonight. Okay. All right. I don't know if JB is fine on D without help, but if you're saying just whatever happens, just stay at home and not give up advantages automatically, that's not. I've heard others also make that same.
Yeah, we definitely overhelp, including Deuce, when it comes to our defensive scheme, and that's part of the scheme, right? Is to pack the paint, and so he's doing what the coach is asking them to do in a certain sense. But it really does mess things up when you're. I mean, don't help unless you need to help, right? It seems like it's an automatic trigger every time the ball is at Brunson. Oh, we got to help. And it'll be like two different players who go to help, and then there's not any communication on either side. And then you're late on the rotation and you give up a wide open three. And we were lucky last night that Sacramento couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat, or that game could have been a disaster.
For sure. Harris Duggar, again, this trade can't be done until February 1st. Cat, Bridges, and 3 seconds to the Bucks. Bridges then goes to Portland for 2 first-round picks and Holiday and Giannis. I mean, listen, if you can get Giannis, and rejigger the team so that him and Brunson, have the necessary pieces around them to make it work, I'm all for it. Holiday, I don't know. If you're telling me that's just part of getting Giannis, then I guess.
I would think that Holiday would be the price of doing business to get Giannis. But the other thing is, I think Portland has control over multiple Milwaukee picks. And so if Milwaukee could get their picks back in the, you know what I mean, and in moving on from Giannis, I think that would help their feelings as far as not getting back as much, on court talent in the immediate. It's when you regain control of your own draft capital, like, and it allows you to tank if you want to and be bad and go back in the lottery. And so maybe that's something that they'd be willing to do. I don't think we're just going out to get Drew Holiday if it means Giannis isn't coming. I think if that happens, that's tied together. I don't think that the Knicks are like, oh yeah, Drew Holiday and Cat is the way to go with Brunson. I'm not sure that that's the thinking. I could be completely wrong, but I would be surprised if that move happens in a vacuum.
Well, it needs to be a 3-team trade, because you can't just get Drew Holiday hoping that the other piece falls into place, because it might not.
Right.
All right. Krim's dad, only one of the greatest point guards ever, but he is irrational. And these comments about Westbrook, the Knicks would be better if they had someone like him, given respect. Let's hope. No, Krim's dad. Like, I hear you talking about Westbrook's overall career. We're talking about Westbrook right now. Right now. I don't think the Knicks would be better with Westbrook over who on the team. And I get it. I'm not one of those that feels like he's a loser and he's a stat patter and that he wasn't a good player. I like Westbrook. I think he had a great career. But right now, he ain't it, as far as I'm concerned, for the Knicks. Maybe, he's on a losing team, so maybe he's asked to do too much, or he feels it upon himself to do too much. Maybe he would be better in a very circumscribed role on a championship contending team. Will get the best of him. If you want to say that, I would agree. I would agree with that. But the way he looked last night, he helped secure the vision. OG played for Sacramento, and Westbrook played for us last night.
And I struggle to see the complementary fit for Russ because he's a non-shooter. I think that makes him specifically a tough pairing. Not that I don't like Russ. Like Russ and his OKC days was incredible, like the triple-double machine. Much respect to him and his career, but at this point, I just don't know. We're having fit issues as it is, and I don't think that Westbrook is the right fit for what this team wants, likes, or needs.
I mean, I get his size next to Brunson when they do play together. I get his ball handling skills next to Brunson if they were to play together. I just think that his shooting and his decision making, we need that next to Brunson as well, as much as we do need the defense and the ball handling. We need that decision making as well. Okay. Harris Duggar, Drew Holiday is perfect He's still really good, an alpha, a scorer, and playmaker. We don't need 35 minutes a night. We don't need 35 minutes a night, Barris Duggar. But are you gonna pay him $35 million? Is it this year and 3 more years, in 2 more years, Jeff, or this year and 3 more years?
I'm not certain. It's at least 2 more years after this one, though.
Right. So are you paying him 35 million this year, let's just say, and 2 more years to play what, 22 minutes a game? Like a 35-year-old? Like back in the day before this CBA, when you're just talking about paying tax money, that's fine. But now when you're talking about being limited in terms of improving your team, if you go from the second apron, I think you got to be a little more careful with these signings. And I love Drew Holiday. If Drew Holiday was a minimum or making like $5-10 million a year, make it happen. Whoever's on the back end of the rotation, make it happen. But that's not the case. But yeah, in terms of fit, perfect. In terms of money and years, not too much, in my opinion, anyway. My Holy King believes Mike Brown has lost the locker room already. I mean, they seem to have gotten it together of late. Luke Skywalker, the Knicks have a top 4 defense when Mitchell Robinson is on the floor. Listen, I'm not arguing impact. I'm not arguing impact at all.
And Russ is shooting 35% from 3, not 38. There's a big difference there.
It is, but it's a little below average. When I last looked at it, and it's been a while, I think league average was 36. So it's almost league average. Will that hold up for an entire season? I don't know. Latoria, appreciate you. JB and defense don't mix. That's a whole lie. Okay. Jeffrey Burgess, think of all those assets we lost acquiring Bridges, sunk cost. Like, you can't let that hold you up from going forward and making decisions that will help this team. So Knicks, appreciate you. So it said Holiday will be a statue out there. I don't know if he's lost that much that he would be a cone or a statue, but I would think that he's not the same player he was when he, played for Milwaukee and Boston.
You have to be leery of any player that Boston is willing to get rid of. They always seem to have the knack for cutting bait on a player right before they fall off a map. I mean, look at Kristaps, look at, going back to Isaiah Thomas and, not so much Kyrie Irving, but that was just, again, not the right fit for them. And I think that's the case with the Knicks right now. The mix of players that we have doesn't look like it's going to be one that's going to work moving forward. That's not to say that it couldn't potentially. I mean, I think it does speak volumes about the Knicks that they can turn the ball over as often as they did and still win a game by 16 points or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So that there's definitely talent there, but whether that talent can optimize each other enough to win a championship certainly doesn't look like that's the case right now at this point in the season.
True. It did happen against Sacramento, Jeff. I don't know if that could have happened against any other team or a good team. And Brunson hit some clutch shots last night to really help because we didn't do anything with DeRozan. And I heard Clyde talking about double teaming, but the coaching staff may have thought, listen, give him his and shut down everybody else and we'll be fine. We were not. It took Brunson to kind of come up with some clutch shots in the fourth quarter and the defense of that lineup to kind of help us close it.
And DeRozan settled for threes in the fourth quarter. I think he was 1 of 6 from 3-point range instead of, attacking in the mid-range where we just had absolutely zero answer for. But when he's still elite at that. Like if DeRozan's going to go off, you're not stopping him. Like his bag is deep, and when he's on, he's on. I mean, it's just the way that it is. So I mean, good luck stopping DeMar when he's at his peak in the mid range. I mean, you're gonna I think it was the right call. Yeah, he had almost half their points last night. They only scored 87. I think he had almost 40. So you know, there's a school of thought that says, yeah, let him get his shots and contain everybody else. And New York certainly did that last night.
Sure. Delusional Knick Fan Network. Shout out to the fam. He's declining to me, talking about Drew Holiday. Plus, he's owed a lot of money. If he was a minimum, I would have jumped at him. Absolutely. I agree with that. Harris Duggar has a few in a row I would like to get to. Westbrook is way better than Deuce right now. And then fit matters too. Right? Fit matters too. So it's not even whether Westbrook is better than Deuce. You can argue that. Who's better for this team? Westbrook or Deuce? I would argue Deuce, you know? And then he said, Cat is making 60 million missing layups. Okay, so you're going to have Cat making 60 million missing layups, and you're going to have Drew Holiday making 35 million playing 22 minutes. I don't think that's a good use of your cap space. You know, he's 35 years old. You know, listen, Geoff, what did we just talked about? This was before I knew he was making 35 million. I'm like, this is who we need. We need a Drew Holiday or Drew Holiday type player next to Brunson. But 35 years old, 32 million? That's no. And that he's not an infinity stone because the Knicks are not right there. Like Drew Holiday, think about what Milwaukee gave up for him. First round pick, I was like, wow, that's a lot. But they thought he was the closing piece. He's not the closing piece on the Knicks if it's not coming with Giannis, right? He's not the closing piece. So
sure.
Why would you go into the second apron? Well, would we go in the second apron if we given up Mikal? Maybe not.
Not automatically, no, but no,
Right.
we wouldn't automatically be. But again, what are you going to do with Mitch? What are you going to do with, you know, what are the parameters of the deal? Who else is going out? What else is, you know, there's a lot to be considered there. But yeah, we wouldn't necessarily be going into the second apron to get Drew, but Drew is a much older player, and you know, as in a vacuum, I don't think anyone would say he's still better than McCall, even though probably, you know, at his peak, he certainly was a better player than Bridges. But, you know, I don't think if you just looked at them side by side, you would say, oh, Holiday is definitely better than Bridges right now. But he does bring other things. If he's healthy, though, is the other thing. Bridges, an Iron Man, plays 82 games a year. Holiday has had his injury struggles and everything else. So, you know, we'll you know, you see what happens. But again, the only way you bring in Holiday is if it's to grease the wheel for Giannis to get him here. And even then, with Giannis's calf injury, I'm skeptical and nervous to make that deal as well, because if he comes back and plays, that's the injury that usually leads to a blown Achilles, is those calf strains that he's been suffering through. So I'm a little bit nervous about, you know, I understand the calculus in it, and if the opportunity to get an MVP player comes, you have to take the swing. But maybe it's just my PTSD, but I with his health concerns, I'm a little bit leery.
I would. Yeah, we have a world class medic. I mean, I don't like the fit with Giannis and Brunson. I don't like that fit. But what's going on now? Ain't it? Paris Duggar, you didn't see him against Paris. Like, I feel like when we talk, guys just hear what they want to hear. nobody is talking about whether or not he could still play, right? He probably isn't the guy consistently that he was. I'm not talking about a good game here and there. He's probably not the same guy he was when he played in Milwaukee and Boston. There's probably some drop off, but nobody is saying he's not a good player. Nobody is saying he can't help us. Nobody is saying he won't. If he played 22 minutes a game, that we wouldn't be a better team. I think so. This is not about Jrue Holiday in a vacuum. It's about the money and the years, right? It's all of that. Break forever. Boston cut Holiday because of the money. Yeah, I think this was after the Tatum injury when they knew they weren't going to be contenders, if I'm not mistaken, and they started to shed salary.
I think that's right.
Okay. Forever. This is the Knicks' last chance. This is it. In Paris, I agree. Holiday only if Giannis. Doug Fresh, agreeing with Geoff. Giannis gets hurt too much. And Jamrock always. I agree with you. I don't like the fit. A Billups or Jrue Holiday type point guard works with Cat, not a ball dominant point guard. Okay. So if I'm hearing you correctly, Jamrock always, it's getting Brunson off the ball would help maximize Cat. If we got in somebody who was more of a distributor and more of a floor general. Okay. Oh, he said, sorry, not Cat, Giannis. Okay, so let me move that back. And I agree with you. I don't like the fit. A Billups or Jrue Holiday type point guard works with Giannis, not a ball dominant point guard. Right. Yes, I would agree with that. And I actually like Giannis and Cat.
I do too.
I like Giannis and Cat.
I think that makes a lot of sense because you're going to want a big who can shoot, and stretch the floor. If you've got a guy like Giannis who wants to get inside, it is not a really good 3-point shooter. So I actually really like that combination. I don't know if OG Anunoby and Bridges going out the door is enough to enough to make that a reality, but
yeah. All right. Latoria B, always enjoyed your grounded, well thought out basketball takes. Thank you. This is needed in next. Oh, thank you, Latoria B.
Salute to you.
We do our best. I appreciate you. Appreciate you rocking with us. And lastly, don't tell nobody I like Cat and Giannis as well. I like those two. Theoretically, I liked Cat and Brunson. When the trade was made, I liked those two. It didn't work out. Anyway, shout out to the chat. Let me just see that we didn't show any comments. My Holy King, I appreciate you. Two Knicks chicks again. Always rocking with us. Randu, I appreciate you. Paris Doug, I appreciate the super chat and giving us something to talk about. Doxorus Rex, always a pleasure. Kim Doc in the house, I appreciate you. As well, Kerry Cox, Taco Cowboy 6890, appreciate you. Wonder Woman, appreciate you. As well, we'll be back tomorrow, 12:30, to talk about this Toronto game tonight. Really excited about this game. The Knicks, to me, are not playing their best basketball, even though we've won 3 straight. So it'll be interesting to see how we step up tonight. And this game is in Toronto. Shout out to the replay gang and the silent listeners as well. Any last words, Geoff?
Yeah, huge game tonight for Eastern Conference standings and the whole bit. So, the second night of a back-to-back for us, and they had rest, so we're at a little bit of a disadvantage. So it's time to step up, and we're going to need to focus and take care of the ball. So let's go get a win.
Yeah, and hopefully Mitch is at the point. His numbers is up. He played 27 minutes. He's been playing 26, 27 minutes, unless Mike Brown just doesn't feel like he needs him for that long. If he can play the second half of a back-to-back now, that would be great. If not, we'll probably see more.
Oh, JJ said no Deuce or Mitch tonight. I didn't see that.
Wow. Salute, JJ. Appreciate you rocking with us and giving us that news. No. So who asked? Was it Kerry Cox who asked if Clarkson was in the doghouse? He'll be out. He'll get some steps in today and get some water. Because I would think Clarkson and Yabusele would be into the rotation, and we cannot. Or he might use Huck Porty. Maybe not Yabusele. He might use Huck Porty. You know.
One more super chat.
One more super chat. All right. Okay. Jamrock always. Giannis continuous calf strain screams Achilles.
I agree, Jamrock. Absolutely, I agree.
They've both been ruled. That's all we need is to finally make the trade. And then he goes down with an Achilles and he's out for a year.
Yeah, let's not speak that into existence.
Okay, Jeff. Okay.
I don't want to think about that today. let's not put that into the ethosphere. But
yeah. Delusional, man. Delusional is the fan. He's definitely part of the collective. Whenever you can join us, we definitely appreciate your insights, Delusional. You guys be sure to check him out. The link to his channel is in the description. I heard you last night, bro. I heard you last night doing the game on Twitter.
Clyde
Appreciate
Jr.
You. Or was that a clip?
I just call him Clyde Jr. I think he sounds a lot like Walt Frazier. So he does a great job. If you have a chance, he's definitely tune into that show when he gets. I don't know if he does it all the time, but whenever he does, it's always worth a listen.
For sure. Anyway, my lunch break is over. Until next time. Until next time, fam. Peace.
Sister, you one of a kind.
Yes.
Sister, it's time you
That's
shine. Dope soul.
Where you at? Where you at?